Hello dear students and friends. Again, nice to meet you all friends. As usually, we have discussed about the contribution of Leo Tolstoy to life and literature. Friends, we have seen that how the contribution of Leo Tolstoy has been changed the lives of many readers, as well as it has long-lasting influence on English literature. Friends, through this short story, The Remorseful Sinner, we are going to discuss about the very important aspects of life. Generally, every story or every aspect came before us regarding certain preaching or regarding certain very important guidance about the life. Friends, the present story, The Remorseful Sinner, is very useful. As far as his real essence of the life is concerned, we found the story is very useful. In that regard, friends, we are going to discuss the details about the short story. Friends, the opening of the short story, The Remorseful Sinner, is with one important epigraph from the Bible. And there is the very important part, the Gospels of Luke, 23rd, 43 and 42 part from the Bible, where Leo Tolstoy has mentioned that, and he said unto Jesus, Lord, remember me when you come into your kingdom. And Jesus said to him, Verily I say unto thee, now today shalt thou be with me in heaven. So it was the epigraph of the story, The Remorseful Sinner. Friends, through this epigraph, the chapter from the Bible, the Gospels of Luke, referring the very important incident happened during the last moments in life of Jesus Christ before his crucifixion. Friends, we have seen that many great persons or people have sacrificed their life for upliftment or for the sake of human on this beautiful earth. In that regard, we found that how Jesus Christ was crucified, and when at that same time there were the criminals bearing the charges of murder and theft. One of them rebuked the soldiers, making fun of Jesus, and warns them of the consequences of punishing an innocent man like Jesus. Yes, it was the problem raised. And in that situation, in that repentant situation, he begged pardon to Jesus Christ for his own crimes before being crucified. Friends, in that situation also, how Jesus Christ was in very great mood for giving the direction or guidance to the person who has repenting, who was really for begging for pardon of his sins, and surely get entry into the kingdom of heaven. Friends, everybody who is going to die definitely want to visit or want to enter in the heaven. You know that in various religion there are various concepts came before us: sin and heaven and hell. And in this story, Tolstoy has mentioned about the 70 years old person, old man of a 70, and he runs the parallel theme with the very important sin suffering by remorse and that final redemption by the merciful God. Tolstoy, quoting the Gospels of Luke, and underline the holiness or the argument of every sinner, if remorseful, has at least an opportunity. Everybody pardoned, everybody want to pardon for his sins. The unnamed sinner who near about lived for 70 years of his life without even bothering about ethics and morality of his deeds. In that regard, this 70-year-old man was really died and, "Oh my Lord, like the thief on the cross, forgive me." So he was in the situation of pardon, and at the soul of sinner loved God and believed in his mercy, came to the doors of heaven. You know, the person who throughout the 70 years of his life totally followed the immoral practices, but at the time of death, he bothering about the morality and ethics of life. And in that situation also, the dying person of 70 years, just expecting that definitely there will be the entry of his life into the doors of heaven. And after death, the sinner started knocking or begging at the kingdom of heaven, and he heard the voice from behind the door. Now this is very important. One by one the ideas came before us that Tolstoy has given, that behind the door there was the sound came. What person is knocking on the doors of heaven, and what deeds has this man done in the life? And when he was asked, the died man, 70 years old man, after living the immoral life, he asked by the person behind the door, who is Peter the apostle. Didn't mention any good deeds. When he asked, "Why, have you done anything good?" At that time, sinner cannot answer any good deed throughout the life. And then the Peter the apostle has said that you cannot enter in the kingdom of heaven. Go away from here. But at the same time, when sinner was answered like that, he asking some questions. "Who are you? What is your name?" Then he told that the person from behind the door of the heaven said that, "I am Peter the apostle." And sinner said, again sinner was the 70-year-old man who knocked at the door, was reading the history of Peter the apostle. He told Peter that how Peter has not followed the ethics, and how he told about the humanity and how the guilt of his shameful misdeeds overwhelms him. And this great sense of sorrow, this great idea came before us. Peter the apostle of Jesus Christ, denying him entry into the heaven. Though disheartened, he sets forth the reasons for his petition, but sinner reminds Peter of his own wrongdoings, despite the fact that he had listened to the teachings of Jesus Christ from his own lips. So it was about the Peter the apostle. And in that regard, the sinner argues that if Peter the apostle has committed errors, then he too is frail. So if Peter can do the mistakes, and after doing the mistakes, if Peter have entered in the kingdom of heaven, then what about the sinner? So all these things came before us from the first time when he knocked at the door. How Peter was asked by Jesus Christ to stay awake and pray at night, but he could not stay awake. Thus he couldn't keep his word. So the person reminding Peter of one more instance that occurred during the trial of Jesus Christ by Caiaphas, the Jewish high priest. When Jesus Christ was invited by the high priest to the temple for his trials, at that time Peter followed him in the darkness, and Peter was asked by soldiers sitting by the fire in the country yard of the temple if he too was with Jesus Christ. But fearful to the punishment, Peter had thrice denied ever knowing Jesus. Peter too had wept in guilt for betraying Jesus Christ. It means Peter the apostle has also betrayed. He was also not followed the ideas of religion, and so Peter was also in situation of pardon for his sins. And hence the sinner, 70-year-old sinner, remorseful sinner asking to Peter, if Peter can have the sinner question him, why should he be denied? And now Peter was dumb. The first apostle has no reason to deny his appeal, but there was no answer and the door to heaven did not open. So it was about the first questioning by 70-year-old remorseful sinner that he questioning Peter the apostle, but Peter was unable to give answer of the remorseful sinner. Again, for waiting for few moments, the remorseful sinner was standing before kingdom of heaven. Again he knocked the door, but now there was no Peter. There was somebody else standing behind the doors of the kingdom of heaven. At that time, however, the person was David, king of Israel, was now David, king and prophet, was there. And when king of united monarchy, Israel or Judah, objects of entry into the heaven, David, again, that this David is the person who fought against the giant Goliath in his childhood. Okay, in that regard, the petitioner begs for pity from King David upon outright rejection. But again, 70 years old sinner was rejected by King David also. And he said that upon knowing this, King David plotted to get her husband killed in the battle. Yes, now the person, petitioner, was again reading the life of David, king, a prophet, that how he has also done some misdeeds in life. Upon knowing this, King David plotted to get the husband killed in the battle or Jerusalem by the swords of enemies and Ammonites. The petitioner reasoned that if his sins can be pardoned by God, then why not this? Why not his? David was silent. David has no answer to the remorseful sinner, but the door was not opened. Friends, it was the idea came before us that how David, king and prophet, or Peter, both have done the misdeeds or done the mistakes in their past life. Apart from such condition, why they entered or why they got the gate of kingdom of heaven? It was the genuine question asked by the remorseful sinner. In that regard, the remorseful sinner, 70 years old man, not stopped there and again knocked third time. He was waiting that if somebody will be there and he will definitely successful to enter in the heaven, in kingdom of heaven. The sinner knocks again, third time, and third time there was who was behind the door? Saint John the Evangelist. Friends, remember all these three persons who were behind the door. And there was Saint John the Evangelist, Apostle John the Evangelist, come to the door and rejects his plea for entry into the heaven. Again, Saint John the Evangelist rejected the entry of the remorseful sinner into the heaven. And at that time, He begs for entry, saying that both Peter and King David know man's weaknesses, therefore they had no objections to his entry into heaven. John the Evangelist likewise should place no obstacle as he preaches love. John's teaching asks all God-fearing men to love each other. Then John, the sinner, says, should embrace him rather than driving him away with hatred. Hearing this, John the Evangelist gives him entry into the kingdom of heaven. Friends, the third person, Saint John the Evangelist, has given entry to the remorseful sinner into the heaven. The sinner, the main character in the story, finally successful to get the entry into kingdom of heaven. And Saint John the Evangelist has opened the door, and how questions their judgment. Like a lawyer, he puts forward some logical elements, and he was successful to claim or turn all the apostles, and to err is human, and how you can judge the other people. All these ideas came in front of us. Friends, the short story, The Remorseful Sinner, and the questions asked by 70-year-old man to all the three very important characters. That is, first character came before us, that is Peter the Apostle. Second character came before David, king and prophet. And third character, Saint John the Evangelist. All these ideas came before us, that now the impossible not to admit me, Peter and David rejected, but finally God is love, and that anyone who doesn't love doesn't know God. Oh, what a beautiful ideas or theme or teaching came before us, that the remorseful sinner of 70 years who did not done any merciful aspect from his throughout the life, but he was successful to teach the very important aspect or very important principle of life, that God is love. And if there is no love, then there is no God, nowhere God. So all these ideas came before us. So finally, there was the conclusion, brothers, love one another. This was the very great message. And so the remorseful sinners, that if would you now hate me and send me away, so renounce from what you said or love me and let me into the kingdom of heaven. So remorseful sinner was asking or challenging the third person, Saint John Evangelist, and finally there was no chance for giving answer to the remorseful sinner, and finally the gates of heaven got open, and John hugged the repentant sinner and admitted him into the kingdom of heaven. Friends, what we learn from this story, what are the themes or what teaching came before us, that to err is human. But apart from that, if in our life, if in conclusion, if there is a love in our life, if we love, we carry the love throughout the life, God really love to the loving person. And in that regard, the story is a kind of emblem of religion, that mercy, pity and love there should not be the hatred, there should not be the anger, but everybody has to feel about the God's grace. And he reminds the reader that God is love, and that anyone who doesn't love doesn't know God. In this regard, what we found, that Tolstoy trying to preaching mercy, pity and love. Throughout the life, we should not give importance to anger. We should not give importance to hatred, malice. But instead of that, everybody has to spread the message of love, message of mercy, pity, and every human being must be protected. Every human being must be enter into the heaven of love. So this is the very important short story, The Remorseful Sinner, that how sinner was finally successful to get the entry. But friends, this story is a kind of a very good teaching for every reader, that though we have to spend our life in what situation, but till the end there must be the very great idea of love in our heart. So everybody must keep mercy, pity and love towards humanity, towards human being. Though any religion is there, though Christianity is there, though any religion from the world is there, what Leo Tolstoy is going to very great teaching to all of us, that 70-year-old man was finally successful to win his entry into the kingdom of heaven. In that regard, friends, remember all these three very important aspects or preachings or discussion of the remorseful sinner and how sinner was successful to enter into the kingdom of heaven. So friends, throughout the life, this is a very important teaching came before us, that keep love in our heart and be very friendly, be very sincere towards living the life. Friends, again I humbly request you, circulate all these videos among your friends and subscribe my channel. Friends, this corona pandemic has teach us a lot of ideas. In that regard, the story the remorseful sinner of Leo Tolstoy also teaches us a lot about the beauty of life. So friends, we have to pray, we have to work, we have to always consider the love, mercy, pity among our life, and throughout life there should not be the anger or malice or hatred we have to follow. So all these things came before us from this short story, the remorseful sinner, and very important lessons we got from this story. Thank you friends, again one and all, thank you teachers and friends.